Welcome back to Turbulent Flow. I'm Renee, the Cirque du Old Lady. That is my good buddy Billy, who, as you can see, is here. Today, I'm just beaming in because this is probably the last nice day that we're going to have in Newfoundland. So I wanted to bring the cube upstairs and get one last workout in on it before taking her apart. So I'm probably going to do that actually during this video. So stick around if you want to see how my cube comes apart. I'm going to pair that with what I was working on just now during this particular workout, along with some conversation, just to be completely incongruous about breast cancer, and specifically two things that have seem to keep coming up when I'm having conversations online with people. So I assume it's something that people worry about quite a lot when they're facing a breast cancer diagnosis, and that is, whether people should be posting happy, shiny, breast cancer go, breast cancer survivor type stuff, which I certainly could, at this particular stage anyways, be, I guess, accused of doing. And not show the super hard side of cancer, thus giving a potentially false impression. So I want to just talk about a little bit about that. I also wanted to just talk about my own personal reasons for, why I chose to actually have a flat closure as my surgery and not get breast implants specifically. So first, though, I'm going to sort of, just for the fact that I am working on this cube piece, I wanted to sort of get some video on what two of the key things that I was working on. Nothing that involves tipping the cube, because Mr. Bill here can be a little unpredictable, and we wouldn't want to hurt him. So these are the two things. I've already warmed up. So this tipping thing that I was working on last time that ends in this position, I did one move where I figured out how to put it into the back walkover by, sort of taking this up, getting it here, going down, and pushing into my back walkover position. I've been working on that quite a lot. Pretty sure that is absolutely going into the sequence that I'm building, but I also was testing it out from the other side, and also discovered that one of the other things that I could do from this is to actually sort of hook my leg, trying to see what that looks like versus this. I'm not entirely sure, but that allows some other positions. See, I could grab here, I could grab here. Yeah, that was it. Then I could switch through here, and can I push into the splits? There was the question that I was trying to work out. And what does that look like? You're gonna know better than I do, but I'll look at that video a little later and see what she looks like. Okay, the other thing that I'm working on, I'll show you two things, because handstands have always been my nemesis. I really have. I can do a handstand against a wall like nobody's business, but man, I cannot do a self-supported handstand. I studied gymnastics when I was younger and couldn't do one then, and even as an adult, I seem to struggle against this. What I have discovered is that I can go here on the cube and get my hips just kind of balancing against the corner. It's just a little bit of support just at that one spot on my hips, which is pretty exciting. This is sort of more of an independent handstand than I've done against a wall. So I'm gonna keep working on that. Whew, because that's that's an interesting one. And then the other one that I'm certainly it kind of came to me in a dream last night, so I'm just going to show it without actually doing it. All right, is this idea of bracing my shoulders here in the corner and basically lifting my foot up. Oh, look at that. I can actually, above me is a beam right now, so I actually can. Ha 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 ha. It looks like I'm doing it, but I'm actually faking this out. I'm faking out this trick just to be perfectly transparent, because there's a beam above me and I've pushed my feet onto the beam. So I'm not actually balancing, but I am at least able to test out how tippy this thing is, and it's not. It's as stable as I thought it would be. So that's pretty exciting. So I know for future that is a potential trick that I can work on. Yeah, there's actually a beam. I'm in a vaulted room, and the beam goes directly across, and just a wonderful bit of positioning meant I was able to do that. So that was pretty cool. Okay, so those were sort of the two things that I wanted to, the circus tricks that I wanted to get video of. And then what I wanted to do for the rest of this conversation was show how this thing actually comes apart, because unfortunately this is probably my last workout on the cube. So I'm gonna take her apart and get her ready to transport back to Toronto. So here is the carrying case that I'll be putting her into. Let me see if I can show off, oh, wrong side. I can show off the sticker that we added to it this particular trip, just for anybody who is familiar with the jokes that surround Newfoundland place names. We did indeed make a trip out to this particular location. It's about an hour away from where I am right now, and we picked up this bumper sticker to add to the sticker collection on this. For anyone who's wondering, I transport this aerial cube in basically a hard-shelled ski case. It's a ski case that we already had at home because my husband skis. So we already owned this really nice hard-shell ski case, and I discovered that I can very practically fit this entire cube into it. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. I'm gonna take this apart. Trying to decide I'll have to decide whether or not I actually want to put the heaviest pieces in here. But yeah, when it's in this hard shell ski case, it makes it really easy to transport around, well, as easy as something that's literally made out of aluminum and steel corners can. So while I do that, hey buddy, I figured I'd just talk a little bit about this whole breast cancer business and my own thoughts. I have been dealing with breast cancer for, I guess, the last 4 years. On my 50th birthday, for anyone who isn't familiar with the story, my happy 50th birthday, my very first mammogram, they identified DCIS, which is ductal carcinoma in situ, how you pronounce it, I don't know. It's regularly called DCIS. It's essentially stage 0 breast cancer. So it actually has not formed a tumor. It's in the ducts of the breast. So it's actually, that's why they call it ductal carcinoma. Has not formed an actual sort of tumor ball, generally regarded as also has not had a chance to escape potentially to the rest of the body, which is, why it's such an incredibly fortunate thing that they can identify DCIS now with imaging. It's incredible. My particular DCIS did show characteristics of being highly likely to form a tumor. And so at that particular time, I had what was a standard recommended procedure. It was in my left my left breast. They did a lumpectomy, and then that was followed by 5 rounds of radiation after I'd healed from the surgery. 2 years later, the DCIS recurred in that same breast, in more or less the same spot. So that's when I was presented with the decision that, you know, an actual mastectomy was recommended. So because I personally wanted to be balanced, I wanted both sides of my body. That's just a personal preference. You know, some people they get referred to as unicorns, women with one breast. You know, very Amazon-like. You know, you can. I believe the Amazons were you know, mythologized to have a breast removed so that they could become better archers. That really wasn't my thing. I wanted both sides to be the same. Largely because when I looked in a mirror, I wanted to see at least something balanced. That's just you know, for my own personal psyche. I didn't want to have to worry about the other breast basically going bad. I'd already dealt with this twice, you know, so if you go back in some of the other videos, I talk about this idea of simply, you know, let's just nuke it from space. If I can't, if I have to lose one breast, I preferred to lose both of them. So that was the choice that I made 8 months ago now. I think I counted yesterday. So we're very, very close to the 8-month anniversary of my double mastectomy, where I had that done. So the reason why I chose what's called a double mastectomy to flat is an interesting discussion, because, I mean, standard procedure for most people is to have implants. Now they do have other options that are known as flap procedures. Deep flap, DEIP, I believe is the correct order of letters for that. Deep flap is where they actually take a chunk of your stomach tissue and can create a new, you know, breast mound in that location. So that's one option. The other options are like, you know, lat flaps. They can take a chunk of your latissimus. They can also take a chunk out of your glute. There are different places where they can, you know, take some tissue off of the body and, you know, relocate it to give you something that's, you know, part of your body and living and natural. But the most common, you know, surgery that follows a mastectomy is normally going to be breast implants. And my own background as a biomechanical engineer includes the fact that I actually TA'd a 4th-year engineering course for 2 years running during grad school in biomechanical implants. And even though that was a while ago, one of the things that I learned in becoming a biomechanical engineer is the fact that soft tissue implants are unpredictable. I mean, anyone who is familiar with what's been going on with pelvic mesh that was used and is, you know, is now being found to have caused a lot of unpredictable issues inside people's bodies, you know, are going to be familiar with that particular concern. You know, that's a little bit different. When they started developing bone implants, you know, joints and things like that, they ran into lots of unpredicted issues. But bones, at least, are a little more predictable than soft tissue. I mean, that is the funny thing. I mean, I actually do have a bone implant myself. I had bunion surgery on this foot, oh God, close to 10 years ago now. And so I have a little plate that's screwed into the bone to help keep it from growing the wrong way again. So I'm not averse to implants. It's not like I have some sort of, deep fear of them, but I know personally, because of my training, that soft tissue implants and breast implants are one of them. Soft tissue implants are more unpredictable. They really don't, to the best of my understanding, they don't know how to say basically who is going to potentially have capsular contraction, some sort of immune response. They don't know. People have different bodies. There are lots of stories of, some people in this world can smoke for 80 years. my own grandmother actually being a great example. She smoked, I think, into her 80s, or maybe she quit when she was 80 because she decided that it wasn't a good look at that point. The woman lived until she was 92. She barely exercised and, did not lead what a person would generally call a healthy lifestyle, and, lived into her 90s independently. So there are some bodies that can do things from a health perspective that other bodies can't. Everybody's different, and we don't necessarily know how to predict which bucket a particular person is going to fall into. However, the experience that I have had with some soft tissue things suggests to me personally that I would not have a good reaction. I mean, I had a navel piercing done in the 90s, so I was very young, had a super cool navel piercing done, and you know what happened to it? It grew out. My body just basically pushed that sucker out. I have one tattoo, which you've probably seen, that I also had done in the 90s, and to this day, once a year, maybe every 2 or 3 years, my body will decide that it's having an immune response to it, and the whole thing will get ever so slightly raised and itchy. It's been decades since that tattoo was put on my body, and every once in a while my soft tissue decides that it is not very happy about that. So I had zero faith in my own body that I would have a good response to breast implants. So that was sort of one of my driving factors. The other one, of course, as I've talked about before, is the simple fact that breast implants and tissue relocation often involves multiple surgeries. I personally have a completely ridiculous hobby, as you are now very familiar with, and as a post 50-year-old woman, I know that the number of years that I'm going to be able to do this hobby at the level that I do are probably pretty restricted. They're pretty limited. Eventually, aging is going to catch up with me, and I'm not going to be able to do these ridiculous circus tricks that I can. I certainly hope to still continue making circus art, because I believe that as I get older, hopefully my ability, I can lean more heavily into the art side of all of this, rather than the cool circus trick side of things. But I have no way of predicting when that day is going to arrive. So I want to enjoy what my body is capable of while it's capable of it, and so signing up for more surgeries than absolutely necessary was not on my priority list. I wanted to maintain the muscles that I had, so that meant absolutely no latissimus related flap surgeries. I didn't have enough belly fat. Hilariously, I lost 30 pounds between my lumpectomy and my double mastectomy. So I put myself out of the running in getting healthier to between cancers number 1 and 2, which I just find hilariously ironic, because you either gotta laugh at these sorts of things or cry. Let's make sure that this video is actually working. Yep, still recording. Sorry, the screen went dead because we just hit the 20-minute mark, I guess. I'm just paying attention to where I am. Okay, if you ever notice ever noticed the piece of tape that's over on this one, it's because I need to remember not to try and undo this particular screw. I'm undoing all the other screws, but that screw, I once upon a time had the wrong Allen key. Yes, I'm a mechanical engineer. I know better. I did not double check the Allen key. I couldn't find the correct Allen key. I used what I thought was an Allen key that fit in the screw and stripped the screw. So I haven't yet resolved that. I've basically found a workaround by the fact that I just don't undo this one particular screw when I'm taking my cube apart. So that's why this little piece of tape lives on my cube, for anyone who has ever wondered that, now or in the future. That's what it exists for. So now you get to see how this thing actually works. These corner pieces are the key to the strength of this cube. These amazing corner pieces. I love the engineering that went into this. Oh, I forgot to undo that one. Love the engineering that went into designing this particular cube. If you are watching this and are thinking of getting an aerial cube, I highly recommend the one from Circus Concepts. Honestly, I've had great experiences with all of the metal circus components that I have purchased from them. I got my first hoop from them. I bought my aerial rig from them. I purchased a sear wheel from them. Super impressed by the sear wheel. Unfortunately, I was terrible at the sear wheel, and I kept running into the fact that I couldn't find a place to actually use the sear wheel. I bought the sear wheel thinking that I would use it in my backyard. Turns out sear wheels need a very specific type of flooring, or at least they do when you're at the level that I was at. Remember, this is the one that's not coming off. And so after trying to use my sear wheel and trying to get better at the sear wheel, I sold my sear wheel and put that money toward this guy. So I ended up buying this aerial cube with the idea of using it both in ground, in ground configuration, which is what you've just seen, and it also flies. I'll be doing some of that when I'm back in Toronto. So putting it in aerial configuration, it's got a lot more uses. I knew that I know how to actually do aerial acrobatics. I was confident that I would be able to, learn how to do some floor-related acrobatics, and that has proven true. This piece of equipment was not inexpensive. Aerial cubes are not cheap, but I have gotten so much use out of this thing because, as you just saw, I don't have to have access to a hanging aerial point in order to do things with it. So I've been pretty freaking thrilled with this apparatus and the general purchase, because the Circus Concepts one has, just comes apart, as you can see, pretty easily. It breaks down into a number of pieces, and I can fit them all into a ski case. So where was I in the cancer discussion that we were having, just as I sort of wrap up this? Yes, I was talking about why I didn't get deep flap, because because I lost weight. I don't have enough stomach tissue, unfortunately, for deep flap. I did not trust implants at all in my own body. I know there are people who get breast implants after having mastectomy, and have good experiences. This is absolutely true. And for goodness sakes, if you read the internet, though, you will not get that impression, because for better or worse, it's the internet. You know, if people are talking about something after it has happened on the internet, they're most likely going to be talking about it because they're having a bad experience. Please know, I'm not trying to fearmonger anybody. Please know, there are lots of people in this world for years who have had implants put in after mastectomy and had a good experience, you know, and been, you know, happy with their choice. It's not all immune, you know, negative immune responses and capsular contraction, but those things indeed can happen, do happen, and unfortunately, until you've had the surgery, you don't know if you're the person that it's going to happen to. And so that's why I was like, I am not taking that risk. That was a personal decision. And I knew that, you know, psychologically, especially because this was not my first time dealing with breast cancer, I had time to think about, you know, what would I do if it came back? And so I had this time to sort of ask myself that question over and over again, and I had come to the conclusion that I would rather just have no breasts and, you know, deal with that aspect of it than to have multiple surgeries, you know, and potentially, you know, unknown outcomes. I talked before as well about, you know, the Goldilocks type surgery, which is one where, you know, in ideal circumstances, they can kind of basically sort of take the extra skin and fat, because when they do a mastectomy, they only take out the breast tissue. They're taking out breast tissue if there's, you know, so skin and fat can be left behind because that's not what the cancer's growing in. They can take those if they're left behind and kind of roll everything up. I used tube sock as an example. They roll it up and you can end up with sort of a breast mound, which is an incredible surgery that, you know, is fairly new in the world. I had hoped to be able to qualify for that, but I had thin skin and not enough fat in my breasts to have a good outcome. So yes, I actually did have a Goldilocks mastectomy. It means I have an anchor-shaped scar that I will never be showing on the internet. I'm sorry. But, you know, in my actual job, I work in a very male-dominated field, so it would be deeply stupid of me to actually show my chest, even though I literally don't have breasts anymore. But I have taken pictures and put them out on some of the Facebook groups that I belong to. So if you're a person who is genuinely looking for, you know, examples of what these types of things, you know, look like, I can point you in the right direction. I just, you know, I always ensure that anything that I've posted that could get out of my control does not start with my face attached to it. So there are pictures that are out there. I'm not ashamed of what my body looks like. I just would never put it on something where my face is actually attached with the medium that goes with it. At least not yet. There is an event happening in Toronto that I went to last year that was so useful. It was called Bra Day, Breast Reconstruction Awareness Day. And that particular day was incredible because they had talks. It happened at Women's College Hospital. They had it online as well. So people could, you know, zoom in from other parts of Canada or potentially, I guess, the world, where people gave talks about the different options for breast reconstruction. A woman gave a talk about her, her experience going flat. Unfortunately, hers was not by choice. She had implants put in and had a bad experience. So her story is quite traumatic. Unfortunately, there are a number of traumatic stories like that. You know, it helped her, I hate to say it, but her traumatic story really helped solidify for me that I just wanted to go straight to flat and not even try the implants, and it resulted in my story not being traumatic. So that's the other reason why I share this particular one, because I think there needs to be more representation of, you know, options, so that women actually understand what's going on. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually taking these and sliding them all into the case. Everything is now inside this lovely case. Here's my little bag of tools so that I don't lose them. Putting them inside as well with that. But yeah, so this is the other reason why I talk about this so much. I really want there to be more information out there about choices, and so that women, you know, because very often when somebody gets a cancer diagnosis, they're not like me. They haven't had, especially the first time, you know, they haven't had 2 years to play that what if game in their head. They haven't had time to think about it to the extent that I've been able to think about it. And, you know, let's be frank, you know, they almost certainly probably aren't biomechanical engineers that literally studied implants as part of their university training. So all of these things came together for me and helped sort of guide and inform my own choice. And that choice has resulted in a really great outcome. As you can see, this is 8 months after I had a major surgery onto my body. You know, because I'd already had radiation, there wasn't more radiation coming my way. They don't do radiation twice on the same area. As well, my lymph node removal revealed that the cancer had not spread, or at least to everybody's, the best of everybody's ability to tell, you know, knock on wood, that it has not spread through the rest of my body that we know of. I mean, I've had a cancer diagnosis twice. I never say anything for sure. I do not use the term cure, even applying to my own self, because they caught it twice. They caught it early twice, but you know, so I have a fairly non-traumatic story that, you know, I like to share for a number of reasons. You know, one, because yeah, I think there needs to be more representation that, you know, going flat, not getting implants, not having the, you know, all of the multiple surgeries that are involved with most of the other reconstructions. I want people to understand that that's a real option. There are lots of women who choose that as an option. It can be your first choice. It doesn't have to be the one that you're stuck with because you had a traumatic medical reaction to the implants. It also means I actually do have some feeling here, you know, because there's nothing unnatural. There's no implant between my skin and my chest, so I don't know if it's my skin sensation or the pressure of being able to feel things on my muscle underneath, but I do have what I consider to be a fair amount of feeling, you know. And this is only 8 months later. You know, let's talk about the fact that, you know, I have a full range of motion. You just watched me do a freaking, you know, half back walkover. You know, I was in a position where, you know, I can do handstands, I can support myself, you know, with my shoulders fully extended. Like that is well, one, it's just unusual for a 50-year-old woman to be able to do that in the first place. I recognize that not everybody trains that way and has you know, has or may be able to do that, but to be able to do that after a double mastectomy, I think it's really, really important, and I feel pretty deeply about just getting out there and showing that it is possible, you know, that this is something that can happen, because so many people are terrified when they get that breast cancer diagnosis, and so they don't know where to turn. They don't know who to, you know, there's so much information, and when we are talking about the internet, so much of it is scary. So much of it is, you know, and it's like, you know, who do you trust? who do you believe? You know, hopefully you trust and believe your doctors. I sure hope that's the case for as many people out there as possible. I know that I've definitely encountered people, especially in the United States online, who worry that their doctors are making recommendations based on profits and outcomes. And that's a little bit terrifying, and I'm a little bit terrified for them in that particular situation. I'm in Canada, so we have, you know, socialized medicine. So that means that I know that anything that's being recommended or certainly approved by my socialized medicine has been, you know, shown to be effective. So they're not going to be recommending things just for the sake of making money, because nobody's getting rich off of our medical system. But that's, you know what? That's a completely different conversation, and I'm going to stop while I'm ahead before I tick anybody off, and say that I hope, I know this is long, but apparently I had a lot to say today. So I hope you're having a good day. I'm going to finish stretching out now that I've got my cube all packed up. I'm going to enjoy this last gorgeous day that I get to spend in Newfoundland. This is such a beautiful part of the world. I absolutely love being able to come here. Billy and Anna, my dogs, are going to be very sad to have to return to Toronto, but you know, this is the practicality of life. So I hope you're having a great day. I hope it's beautiful where you are, and I'm going to say goodbye for now. Bye.